Okay, we are going to have a fabulous conversation right now about this idea of building and growing a remote sales team. So, a couple of years ago, building a remote sales team might have been a little bit challenging, a little bit cryptic, but now it seems like the right thing to do because it's just more efficient, and there are so many economies of scale that we can do. There's good sort of work-life balance with our team members, and so many possibilities. I have an expert on this subject matter. And this expert, his name is Levy, and he's going to get into what we need to be doing to really be thinking about remote sales and building out that team and getting people inspired, and of course accomplishing my our goals here. So if you could please start with a short bio, and let's get into this topic.
Absolutely. So nice to be with you here today, and to be
Yeah.
with your audience. Short bio. I actually come from the real estate space originally. Real estate property management. Entered into energy, retail power and gas 12 years ago. Building up the renewable energy company, retail power and gas company out of Brooklyn, New York. Uh, about 4 years into it, realized that there was a serious need around customer-facing teams specifically. So as being in the retail power and gas company business, I was mostly spending my time around developing out customer-facing teams.
Hmm.
And I kind of tested out the waters, on site in our offices in Brooklyn. I went down to the Dominican Republic, hired teams out in the Philippines, hired teams in Florida, nearshore, offshore, and there was just a slew of different issues that I was running into, from just finding the right talent, to not wanting to outsource it to a third party and wanting to keep it, my finger on the pulse, the hands on everything that's going on, and to scaling up to all the little intricacies that are needed to actually launching a customer facing team, customer engagement team. Now, the core of the focus of what we did back then was sales, but but it kind of bled into other things as well. So it's retention to upselling to quality assurance, and obviously some customer service too. But again, core of it was sales, and just trying to figure out like what is the best way and the best model, and take into considerations all the pitfalls that we would run into based on the on-site versus nearshore versus offshore models, and then of course looking at it with being hands-on with internal versus outsourcing, and going through that whole experience kind of opened my eyes to a real opportunity, and that's when we started Overpass.
Yeah, thank you for that. There's a couple of distinctions here that I'd like to make. There's a remote sales team, there's an outsourced sales team, there's nearshore, and there's offshore. So there's probably more variations of that. But could you take us through sort of maybe a quick synopsis on maybe some of the pros and cons of each of those different sort of permutations?
Yeah, so typically people see like offshore or nearshore, as an outsourced solution, right? So I'm outsourcing my customer engagement team to a third party.
Hmm.
Now, there are certain benefits of doing it near shore than offshore, but either way, essentially, I'm outsourcing it to a third party, and then of course you're building up your own team internally, right?
Hmm.
And building up your own team, and there's lots of amazing benefits that come along with that, which is you're building the culture, you're hands on, you're very involved in the details and optimizing the flow and ensuring that your customers are getting the right experience. And then there's remote, right? There's the distributed teams, which is the best of both worlds, because you're not giving it off to a third party. You're not outsourcing it. It's literally the same thing as if you had it in-house in your physical offices, but you are able to take advantage of the fact that they are distributed. And of course, there's lots and lots of benefits that come along with that.
Hmm. Nice. And then what have you learned? I mean, what are the three biggest challenges that people are dealing with, that leaders, sales leaders, CEOs, heads, leaders, what are they suffering from right now? What have you noticed?
Well, I mean, I think pretty much everyone would agree. that not just within customer-facing teams, customer engagement teams, or sales teams, it's very difficult finding great talent. And especially when it comes to sales teams, you don't just want to find a great salesperson. You want to find a specialist. You want to find someone that knows your space, someone that understands, your vertical, understands the technologies or is familiar with the technologies you work with, is available in the time you want them to be available, speaks the languages you want them to speak. And that is almost impossible to come by locally. And then even if it is possible to come by locally, a lot of companies are challenged with the cost that comes along with that. Of course, with inflation today, it's only getting worse. I predict over the next year to 18 months, this problem is going to magnify tremendously. So, I would say the biggest number one issue is just purely finding what the talent at an affordable rate, and then number two is time. A lot of companies don't have the luxury of taking 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks to onboard local sales talent. They have a market that they need to hit. Whether it's because of VC money and they have certain expectations of them, they want to bring on certain revenue, and they have a certain target that they want to hit, and if they don't hit it, then they're essentially not getting the next round of funding, right? So they don't necessarily have the time. So it's not just a matter of getting the right person at the right rate and for them to be specialized in your space, and to be able to deploy them very quickly and easily. But to be able to do all that really, really fast, and so you could hit your revenue marks.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things that I think about a lot is this idea of culture. You mentioned that earlier, where if we hire and we sort of evangelize our corporate culture and our customer service techniques, the way in which we communicate, our flow, our process, if we really start to disseminate our culture out to our team, we start to build a larger collective culture. Now, talk to me about some of the challenges that you've heard about where culture gets broken when the team is not necessarily remote, but more outsourced or even part-time. And then
Yeah.
of course, the solution for that. How do we solve that culture?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting because I think people automatically assume that if it's going to be within this model, then there's going to be a culture break, and there are going to be culture concerns, and they're not going to actually really want to take the time to invest in the talent. And I found that that's just a mindset that some companies come in with. But the reality is that it's totally not the case. I think that comes from where the outsource concept, you're outsourcing to a third party, and you're just kind of hands off, and obviously you're not building any type of culture in that way. We personally have over 18 reps that we've hired, from sales reps, primarily, even sales ops. We even have a couple marketing people that we've all hired from our marketplace, and the culture is tremendous. There's morning chats every morning. I actually personally engage with them every single week. There are one-on-ones. There's ongoing training. There's personal development. There are bonuses. There's there's everything that creates. Obviously, it's virtual, so we're not going out to dinner together. But you're going to get that with any type of remote situation. But in terms of the culture and the buy-in that we all have as a team, like I just was on with the entire team earlier today. One of the things we were discussing, which was amazing, one of the things we were discussing is getting more granular with the industries. Mm-hmm. And not just being like, let's say finance, for instance, but like there are maybe like 10 or 12 different subs of finance. So that way we could kind of, tie in the two sides in a much deeper way. And it was a brainstorming session with all, the entire sales team. So this is not like some outbound, outsourced person that's going to make a couple calls for you. These people are members of the team, and it's all about the companies. If they want to look at it that way, it will be that way. If they want to invest in them, they will get that return of proper culture. if they're not going to invest in them, and they're not going to communicate, they're not going to treat them in that way, and they're not going to provide open lines of communication and invest in the training. We have a week onboarding training on our company with what we do. So if you're just going to hire someone, throw them a resource and tell them good luck, call me if you need anything, and then when they don't actually hit your quotas, you call them up and you're like, hey, what's up? That's you not building the culture. So if you did that with someone in-house, the same outcome, you would be getting the same outcome. It doesn't matter if they're remote or if there's someone physically literally sitting right next to you. You're getting what you're investing in. If you invest the time and energy, you're getting that back.
Well, I mean, this goes back into an old Chinese proverb. I'm sure every civilization has this one. There is no such thing as a bad student, just a bad teacher.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
I think this is the ultimate statement of accountability, where we as leaders and as hiring managers, we're really in servitude in disguise. And I think what I mean by that is when you say onboarding, I think of training, I think of adopting into the corporate culture, I think of providing compassion and empathy during transitional times. And it takes time. It takes time to invest in people. And I think that the best investments are medium to long term, not sales overnight.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you, and I think that again, yeah, I think people have concerns at times where they don't want to invest because they're coming with preconceived notions of this not being, this longer term relationship. It's kind of like this like kind of quick thing in and out, where it's going to be a day, a week, or a couple of weeks or a month. But no, that's not the case. If you invest, you'll actually get that back. You'll build that relationship, and it can definitely be longer term.
Yeah, one of the things that we think about a lot is this idea of avoiding meetings when possible. Now, meetings are great. We love meetings. We're not allergic to them. But at the same time, we understand that sometimes instead of a 30-minute meeting, we always like to say, let's send a 3-minute video instead of having a 30-minute meeting on Zoom. And the reason why we believe in that is because we're a very sort of asynchronous video kind of content creation type company, because of course we run a software company that allows people in sales just to use videos. So we say, why don't we use videos for internal meetings and internal purposes as well? Here's my question for you. When do we know that we're having too many meetings on Zoom where it's actually affecting our morale and people are now having to put up this cardboard character to always be present in those Zoom meetings as opposed to actually getting their work done?
Yeah, good question. I think that it's tricky because I don't think people intend to have a meeting that's pointless.
Yeah.
I think for the most part the intentions are valid, are pure, and when you're calling a meeting, you actually like are trying to get to an objective. But I think it's a matter of a couple of things. One is if you're gonna call a meeting, take some time to think through like really is this meeting necessary, A, and B, who needs to be part of this meeting? Because I feel like sometimes like the meeting is necessary, but then you have like, I don't know, maybe half the members of the meeting that just don't need to be there. And then also I think what's really helpful is an agenda prior to, and sending out the agenda. So it's preparation. And then I think like as you do more of that and putting more thought into it and preparing more, you'll start to realize like if this meeting is actually necessary and if these people actually need to all be here. I think a lot of it is just like just what you're used to. So it's like we've been having this meeting and we're just we're going to continue having this meeting, and then there's like a burnout feel. So and what might be cool is like getting like an outside party to be like the meeting police, where the meeting auditor, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be like an ongoing role for like for whatever, for however long, but it could be for like come in for a month. It could even be someone that's already working with the company. Hey, you know what? I think you think well. I like the way you think. do me a favor, spend the next month, go through the different meetings going happening within the company. Let me know if you think that all the people that are there should be there, if they're preparing the way they should be preparing, and even if the meeting needs to happen.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. I think that self accountability is really critical here. I really connect to this idea of, what is it that we're going to talk about? Who is it that's in this meeting? And I think that when we establish the sort of need to have versus want to have type sort of priorities, we can say, hey, maybe we don't need to have this. Maybe we just want to have it, or maybe we do need to have it. And so I think making those decisions is really critical here.
But I do want to add one thing, though. When it comes to sales, meetings are so important. They really are. And I feel like there isn't enough meetings in sales, especially with remote sales. Now, that said, you do want to ensure the content is sound. You want to ensure that that people are actually gaining from the meeting. You're not just having the meeting, sure, but to meet twice a day, even for 15 minutes or 30 minutes, is super important for morale, to constantly grow, to learn from each other, to optimize your process. There's so much to grow, and that's a problem also. Is people come into like sales thinking that, well, we put it together, the framework or the playbook or the people and the process, and now we're going to do it. It doesn't work like that. It's a living, breathing organism. It's something that you constantly have to massage and have to optimize in order for it to actually give you the fruit that you want out of it. That's just how sales works. If you think that you're not going to do that, and a lot of people don't want to believe that that's the case because they don't want to put in the resources or the resources, right? They don't maybe want to hire the dedicated sales manager, or they have a dedicated sales manager that's doing a bunch of other stuff too. So they're not really dedicated, or they're not really putting in the time. And in their mind, they're thinking, well, they don't need to spend all their time on this. But if you really think through the things that they have to do or they should be doing to really optimize the process, you'd realize that absolutely they need to be dedicated. Because it's not just, even if you have a small team of 2 or 3 people, it's not just about that optimizing the process. It's how we're going to get to the point of now scaling this, right? And then that comes along with what? We have to now find more people. Who are we going to find? What's our interview process look like? How can we improve on our interview process? On when we onboard them, what does our training process look like right now? Are we putting our training process into a learning and management tool, so we can scale that out? And that's a whole massive effort in itself. What does our content look like? What's the format of our content look like? Is it professionally done? Or did we get one of our sales guys to put it together in the interim and we just never looked back?
Yeah. So what would you say the ideal sort of agenda of a recurring sales meeting would be? So this is your weekly sales call with all the reps, everyone in the sales department. How do you like to manage a meeting like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the CEO, so I'm not running the team, but first of all, I would like ops to be on every meeting. The sales ops gal or guy. Every morning, there's a stand up. Every morning, it's video. It's not voice. Everyone's on the video stand up. First thing in the morning, you block that out of your calendar so none of your clients are booking out. That's going to run from anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. I would probably say more like 30. And then there's the Slack, right, running throughout the day. So it's back and forth communication, different things that are happening. You kind of set up your Slack channels, DMing, some fun stuff, some exciting stuff that are happening in Slack. So you're constantly collaborating, communicating throughout the day, and then you're closing out that day. Again, all video meeting, talk about just a recap on the day, what's going on, close it out, make sure we're all there, we're all on the same page, and then you set up your one-on-ones throughout the week. Beyond that, so it's a daily open and close, all hands, right? All hands from sales, including sales ops, and then separate from that, you're setting up your one-on-ones which is getting deeper into that specific person in terms of how the deeper coaching,
Mm-hmm.
the deeper
That
coaching
makes sense.
and how they can improve. And those one-on-ones, I would say, would be about an hour. And you want to, it depends how large a team size is. If it's a smaller team, you want to do it every week. If it grows larger, you might not have the time, but no less than every other week.
Great. Now take me through Overpass.
Sure, absolutely.
I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna bring up the website while you're sort of giving us the sort of problem, maybe and solution statement, and then
Yep.
kind of some of the nitty gritty.
Yeah, sure. So the main thing, the main problem that companies run into is it's very hard getting sales off the ground.
Okay.
That's just, it's as simple as that. It really is. Thinking about, there are some companies that work on Overpass that have never built a sales team. A lot of them have, and they just want to scale a sales team. But the reality is that, especially if you don't if you haven't really spent the time in developing out a sales team, it could be a daunting task. So it's nice when you could go through the entire flow from the thought of, hey, I need to scale out a sales team, to actually having a sales team and having everything you need, even from a resource perspective, to run the sales team, all within a couple days. Right? And it's not outsourced, meaning it's an in-house team. So essentially what we're talking about here is, I'm getting onto a platform, going through a free registration flow. I'm finding the sales specialists. And that's very important, because if they're just sales people and they don't specialize in my space, that's not that meaningful to me. It's nice, it's good, but sales specialists that actually have extensive experience in my space specifically, go through the flow of interviewing, requesting an interview, interviewing them on the platform, and then continue on to hiring them, and then deploying them. When I say deploying them, there's two ways to deploy them. There's two models there. One is if they're working off some other sales enablement tool. There's a number of them out there. There's Outreach, there's SalesLoft, there's HubSpot. Then they would continue on working with those tools, and they will work with the talent, and they will process the payment through Overpass as well. If they don't have a third-party sales enablement tool, we have our own sales enablement tool as part of the platform, as part of the ecosystem, and that would be the other option that they could opt into.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. And then you mentioned the marketplace. So how much of the platform is in fact the marketplace? And when I say that, I mean the talent pool.
Honestly, if it wasn't that's the core of everything, right? So
okay, got it.
So we're a niche in sales. So we're a sales talent marketplace, and what that means, and of course we're enriching it more and more over time. But what that means is we're sales first versus remote talent marketplace first. So if you look at like some other generic marketplaces like Upwork or Freelancer, when they set everything from job posts to flows to profiles to querying abilities, you're setting this up thinking about the holistic picture, right? From copywriters to designers to developers, and there's so many things that you need to take into account, and ways that you need to build that out to encompass everything. Right, so you can't be specific, and by doing that, you lose. Right, you lose the granularity, you lose the ability to enrich your search and get deeper in terms of what it is that you're actually coming to the platform to begin with for. So the way we do things is we enter the shoes of sales people and sales managers. In fact, we have sales consultants that consult us, not just from a content strategy perspective, but from a product perspective. Right? So it's not just about industry specialization, getting granular with industries. Of course, it's about availability, but the voice sample, right? So we have a voice sample on every profile, and being able to listen in to what they sound like before you even spend time and requesting an interview with them. Understanding their personality, their sales specific personality, their sales core competencies, their sales skills. Right? There's multiple steps of a sales conversation. So when you look at skills, for instance, in Upwork or in a freelance or Guru, you're talking about, again, generic skills. What we care about is skills that specifically apply to the different steps of a sales conversation, because there are inherent core skills of each step of a sales conversation.
That makes sense.
So we work with sales consultants to grow and learn in terms of what the sales leaders of the world, what are they looking for when they're hiring salespeople, and then we integrate that to enrich this experience between client and contractor.
That sounds very compelling. Overpass.com is the URL. Sounds extremely intriguing. I'm definitely going to be doing more of my own research. And then tell us a little bit how we can connect with you. Social channels. I have your LinkedIn profile up here. Where else is a good place to connect with you?
Yeah. So you can even email me, Lavie at overpass.com, LAVIE at overpass.com. You can check me out on LinkedIn. It's probably the best place. You got my LinkedIn link up there. And then, of course, check out overpass.com as well.
Nice. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the Dubb LinkedIn integration and send you a personalized video message thanking you for being on the podcast with me. So look out for that. Lavie,
I just want to say one thing. We use the Dubb product and we love it. Our whole team uses it, our whole sales team, and it's really, really great product. And we're able to be a lot more impactful because we've used it. So props to you guys for really putting out a strong product.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. I would love to figure out a way to provide more value to you, to build integrations, to allow your entire ecosystem to be able to communicate more effectively with video. So I'm here. There's nothing more that we like better than partnerships and building integrations. So please keep in touch with me on that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And thank you once again. Stick around just for a couple of minutes for production notes, and I'll end it here. Thanks again. Really appreciate the time.
My pleasure.